So thank you for inviting me to come back and speak to you a little bit about myself and how I came to be doing my artwork the way I do, and sharing that around the world. I've had some wonderful opportunities over the years. But I had always wanted to be an artist. I grew up here in Seattle, and my father was a successful commercial artist. Started taking art classes in junior high school, and then in high school I became kind of the unofficial artist of the school, and I would get to do murals in class and help some of the older students with their projects, and ended up illustrating the yearbook. And so that gave me a lot of confidence in my art and really sort of helped me to determine that this was something that I wanted to pursue as a career. But you know, I didn't really want to settle down and start on my career right away. I wanted to kind of see some of the world, travel around a little bit, and have some experiences. But I had an occasion to go to New Orleans, and I don't know how many of you have kind of studied that part of the country, but it's a very rich, culturally rich area. So the music and the food and the architecture, not to mention the climate. You know, it's very warm down there, and it's really pleasant to be outside a lot. And I fell in love with the city. I was traveling with a friend of mine, and we got a small apartment that was right across the street from the Mississippi River. And so when the weather started getting really hot, I would cool off by taking a little swim in the river. And so I felt comfortable, and I thought I knew, you know, where things were. A hot July day, I decided that I would cool off and went for a swim. And you know, I thought I knew how deep the water was, so I dove into what the day before had been plenty deep water. It had filled in overnight, and a sandbar had developed. And I dove into some shallow water and injured my spinal cord and was paralyzed right away. So they got me to the hospital. I spent 7 weeks in critical care in New Orleans before my condition stabilized enough that they were able to transport me back here to Seattle, where I started a year-long rehabilitation at the University of Washington Hospital. You know, once I got discharged from the hospital, I really had to reconsider what my life was going to be like, and how was I going to spend my time, and you know, at 22, you know, was I going to be able to carve a life out for myself that would be satisfying, you know, and try to sort of contribute to society. So I looked around for some volunteer opportunities, and the first thing that came along was a chance to develop an art program at Children's Hospital over past the university. And so I started volunteering up there. Every other week I would go up, and it was such a wonderful experience. And you can imagine, for myself, I'd only been hurt, you know, maybe a couple of years, and was still kind of emotionally dealing with this situation that I brought on myself. But to go up to the hospital and get a chance to spend time with some younger patients who had been, in many cases, much more severely disabled than I was, and had been so their entire lives, to see their spirit, you know, and how they really responded to their disability, really filled me with a lot of confidence to continue to develop an art program up there. Once I had done that for a while, somebody suggested that maybe I would be willing to apply for a grant to develop the program a little more seriously. And so I did, and I received a year-long grant from the state. And there was an organization involved with that called Very Special Arts. And it was founded just a year before my injury. And they spent a lot of time doing arts festivals locally as well as nationally, and then later on internationally. And so I had an occasion to go back to Washington, D.C. for their first international festival, and got to meet Andy Warhol and Jamie Wyeth, and artists that I admired my whole life, and worked with a lot of other artists from around the country, and not just in the visual arts, but dance and music, literary arts, and it was really an amazing organization. So I came back to Seattle and started volunteering on their board that they had here in Washington State. But I think what really made the biggest difference for me in my career was applying for membership to the International Association of Mouth and Foot Painting Artists. I think we're passing one of their catalogs around for an exhibition that we had in Shanghai some years back. And so through this organization, not only is my income secure, but I have an opportunity to have my work on exhibition and reproduced in the various chapters around the world. So we've been really fortunate to travel quite a bit. Ani and I have been to Lima, Peru, and Sydney, Australia, and Shanghai. But it's at one time I thought that my life was pretty much over, and that I was going to be lucky to just sort of function in some institution, or just try and find a little bit of happiness. I think growing up I was kind of a loner. I liked spending time on my own, and one of the hardest parts for me in this whole situation has been to learn how to work with other people, and to try to keep in mind that they have a life too, and that I'm not just kind of there to be waited on. You can see the stuff that I brought in. Some of it is a little more modern, that I do for my own interest, and then other things, like this little Christmas wreath here, is done strictly for commercial purposes. And it's so I don't have one particular kind of style that I do with my work, but I have different styles that I return to from time to time. Well, one of my favorite projects that I did recently, I know a lot of you've seen around Seattle in some of the different bus shelters that people have decorated. And so I hadn't done anything like that before, and I was really kind of interested to see how it would turn out. And so I took some designs that I did, a little bit like this black and white and gray figurative thing, and so just kind of shapes that would suggest human bodies, and incorporated that and enlarged it and added more brighter colors and things.
Okay, he can talk and paint at the same time. So if
Yeah,
you
sure.
have questions.
They want to know if they can take pictures.
Oh,
Is
yeah,
it-
yeah, of course.
And I'm just going to read this.
And if he can't answer, then I can.
So you can ask questions while he's doing this, you guys. Yeah. Right? Yeah.
So is anyone here from Japan?
No.
No, Jimmy. I was going to say I had an extremely amazing occasion to paint for the Emperor and Empress of Japan. But of course, I don't speak Japanese.
But you practiced.
Yeah.
Hello and thank you.
I got domo arigato is about pretty good.
After accident, how long did you take to start drawing with your mouth?
Well, when I was in the hospital, they, they knew that I had an interest in art, so they encouraged me. But when I was in the hospital, I really wasn't ready to do any kind of art. I just wanted to see if I could get stronger and do as much for myself as I could. But once I got home, my parents put together a studio for me, and there wasn't much else to do. So I did spend, 8 to 10 hours a day, but I didn't have very much control. So I ended up just kind of doing lines and shapes and colors and different textures. And I'm not sure if you...
Kind of like this.
Yeah, a little bit like that, where it didn't really, I wasn't really trying to do a subject because I was afraid I might get kind of discouraged if, things didn't turn out like I had hoped that it would or not. So there were a few artists. Mark Tobey is one that was a very renowned painter here in the Northwest. And he used a lot of designs from Japanese calligraphy. And he studied in Zen monasteries and was very much inspired by the work that he saw in calligraphy. So he has a very modern style. And I spent a lot of time studying that. And I like Picasso. And so I used some of his techniques as well. But I probably paint as much now as I ever did. I was always kind of shy, and to get up in front of a class and talk was really a scary kind of thing for me. But I had to, I had to get over that. If I was going to express what I needed, my help on stuff, then I was going to have to develop kind of a thicker skin and not really be too concerned maybe about what people thought of me or like that. So it really helped me to sort of open up myself, instead of kind of just being by myself all the time.
What does art mean for you? Can you use one word or one sentence?
One sentence. I'm sorry, I need a translator.
No, she's like, can you condense what art means for you down to one word or one sentence?
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Well, at this point, I think, for me, art is a way for me to respond to the world around me. So it's just my way of making sense out of the world a little bit. Well, I think what's always exciting is how other people respond to it, because maybe I'm sometimes too close to my subject, and maybe it looks great to me, but somebody else will look at it and go, no, maybe it's not, I'm not seeing it the same way. And so I don't know, it's always kind of interesting that way, because I can do something that I'm not very happy with, but somebody else will see it and they'll like it, and it means a lot to them.
So you do something you don't like it?
Oh yeah, and those usually get thrown away, or I'll make a gift of it to somebody. Well, the way it worked for me was that when I was in the hospital, they gave me a stick in my mouth to use a keyboard, so that I could push letters and I can operate a computer or something. And so I got pretty good at it. And so I thought, well, it seemed kind of a natural thing since I couldn't hold a paintbrush or anything in my hands. And I was already using a stick in my mouth to operate that, or I'd turn pages in books and stuff that way. And so I thought, well, why don't I go ahead and try holding the brush in my teeth? And so, like I said, I just did very, very simple little shapes and lines and played around with colors, which before my injury I spent a lot of time doing with pencils. And so in sketchbooks and things, so it was almost always just black and white. So when I started putting a pencil in my mouth, I wasn't getting, you know, it was really hard to kind of press down hard enough and to get the kind of shading and things that I used to get. So it seemed kind of a natural development to try and do a paintbrush with my mouth. And then I started working with color, which I'd never done before, and it really got kind of exciting for me. So it was, so that's kind of how I got to be doing it with my mouth so much. And I still use my mouth for lots of other stuff too, which I did. Right, honey? Whether I'm doing my books or, you know, like that.
He's writing a book.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, he's been talking about writing a book for a long time, and he just finished reading The Goldfinch, and I think that author inspired him a lot, so he started writing, and he's been really diligently writing lately.
Yeah, it's a
I
real
haven't been
challenge.
privy to what he's written yet.
So it's not a biography?
No, it is.
It
It's
is.
kind
Oh,
of
it is a
memoir.
biography. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting from what he's telling me that he's doing, because he might be lying in the hospital bed in New Orleans, but he's having flashbacks to when he ran away from home when he was 3 years old and got lost in Discovery Park. And so he's kind of telling stories, but kind of then going back to what they're doing for him in the hospital in New Orleans. So I'm really excited about reading it and seeing how he's going to pull everything together.
And so how are you writing that? Like on a keyboard?
Yeah.
On an old computer.
One of the old iBooks, which I don't even think they make anymore.
And so
he's
you
got a
use-
brand new computer, but he doesn't have Word on it, Microsoft Word, and so he has Microsoft Word on his old computer, so he's writing this and that.
So, I
and
mean,
the other
again-
day he goes, it died, I lost it. I'm like, oh no.
And so,
Thankfully, it recovers.
and so you hit the keys with the
I do,
stick?
yeah, it takes forever.
Oh.
But you know what I've done? In fact, you can look in some of my stories that I have here. And so I'm trying to take kind of bits and pieces of other writings that I've done and see if I can't kind of work that into it a little
Oh,
bit.
yeah, I see, yeah. See,
You
I see
have a
what-
lot of writing on that website.
Yeah, there is a whole bunch. And,
Well, he's been keeping a journal since '78, and we have volumes of that.
I wish we had pictures of, oh, that one on Magnolia Beach there. What's the fourth one down? Yeah, that one there might have a picture of Paul. Yeah, see that picture? Did that one blow up? That-
Oh my gosh, is that my brother?
There's Paul. There's
It is.
And then I'm standing on top, and then our friend Janice is on a staircase. And what would happen is,
In the door.
over on Magnolia, you have a lot of landslides, so there used to be a lot of houses, but with different sort of mudslides and things. There were some of these shacks left over, and nobody knew about them, and they were all hidden way back up in the woods and stuff. And so Paul and I and some of our friends would kind of rehabilitate some of these old buildings. And I would just go down there for the day, you know, but Paul lived there for a while. So he actually took up residence. And so we called that the House of the Rising Sun. So it was a fun time.
Keep painting, because at 3:30, I think they have to leave.
Well, I think I'm done here, honey. We can take this out.
Really?
It's just a little sample of what we got going on.
Did you sign your name?
I did. So this is just a little example. You can see. So I usually make a present of this to anybody who's celebrating a birthday or they got something special coming up.
Okay, we have a birthday tomorrow, and that's the closest. Mohammed, yours is what, Saturday?
Yeah.
Oh, I think Sangman beats you. He's the
All right.
closest.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh.